becomes impossible. So these were some things we said. Peak analysis and so that, then continuous evaluation भी होते रहता है. Put it this way. Let's jump down to today's session and yeah. So इसमें हम लोग ये देखेंगे कि how are you going to define your problem statements? How do you ideate upon this, right? Typically, this is the design thinking cycle. Like I said, अलग-अलग representations हो सकते हैं. They can be a double diamond technique. दो diamonds बने दिख जाएंगे. कई लोग बस waves बना के दिखा देते हैं. Some people just draw loops. But all in all, these are basic steps involved. Empathize with the user, understand what their needs are, किस context में वो लोग काम कर रहे हैं. Define your problem statement and the target audience very clearly, which we will look into right now for this part of ideation group. Okay. Now, this is very important. Like आपने बोला कि स्मार्ट मीटर्स पे आप काम कर रहे हो, सारा सर्वे ले लिया, but कुछ ऐसा नहीं लगा कि that's whatever you are bringing to the table किसी और ने नहीं किया हो. Perhaps it's time to identify the problem statement more in a much better way. You have to relook at it, right? And then this becomes important. Like I mentioned yesterday, class khatam hote hote, you have to write your problem statements very clearly. So how do you write that? You know, once a user ko problem, we have to be very specific, right? What is the problem? How pe ho rahi hai? Again, the context comes into the picture. And why is it important to address that? Like if you are at least able to address these 4 W's, that is one way to go about it. Now, there are many things or many ways in which you can try to identify problems. But for the time being, let's just keep it simple. So, all in all, the basic definition is that what is the current state and what is the desired state that you want your intervention solution to achieve that way. And this is important. बहुत ज़्यादा rigid नहीं हो जाना अपने problem statement. You don't fall in love with the problem statement. Have to leave a bit of room. थोड़ा space देना होता है ना, like everyone needs a bit of space. Similarly, there should be some ambiguity, and you should be comfortable with this. Not everything is crystal clear in black and white. Not as so you have to leave a room for creativity that way. You will stumble upon different techniques in fact within design, or perhaps if you are studying management and other things, you may stumble upon these terminologies because it's known by many names like how might be, what's the problem view, need statement, all those things. But the crux of it lies a user, a need for the user, and what are the goals that you would like to achieve for them. So, like it says, an actionable problem statement summarizes users, their needs, and the goals. This becomes very important. Children need to play more physically, to learn better. You know, the goals become your learning. The need is for a more physical engagement that way. The user here is when these children, what age group? Define clearly. What happens is that whenever you are conducting your initial surveys and all search, right? So one idea is that we try to get as many users as possible on board. Generally, आप कोई भी product बनाते हो, so the goal is that it should serve a large population of that target audience, right? But this is not always the case. I mean, at most, because it's a practical challenge, धरती पे सारे लोगों को तो आप नहीं reach out कर सकते. So you select target audience that are sort of representing your main group. Fine, and that is where we bring in personas. So अब आपका जो भी product है, whatever it is that you are designing, it should serve a target audience, right? So let's say कि you're talking about university students, and perhaps you interviewed some 10 to 15 students from Triple IT Delhi itself, maybe between first and third year. Fine. So based on your findings from these 50 people, so आपने बात की है, what you will do is you will create a persona. इसका नाम आप कुछ भी रख सकते हो. This is primarily like, so some say that it is a fictional thing, but I would rather say that this person is fictional, perhaps. Fine. But whatever the needs, the identity that is created in this persona has been derived from the need of your target audience. There are different types of personas, but at the base, personas are always created by doing deep research, understanding users. But ऐसा होना चाहिए कि that as soon as you say कि भाई, I am giving this, कि Sujoy has to do this, right? Or this is the need. Sujoy as a persona should convey to the stakeholders what are the needs for that audience. Fine. Generally, we start with, कुछ pictures लगा देते हैं. Or whenever I give this activity to students, सबके सब फिरंगी लोगों को लगा देते. Please don't do that. You're working with an Indian population. Fine. To get at least those pictures that in India, आज की date में तो pictures भी generate करना fake वाली मुश्किल नहीं है. Like you can go to whoisthisperson.com and it generates like a number of images that are all AI generated.
I think this is a very relevant point because if I put in an image of a foreigner,
right,
then somehow I will not be able to empathize as much as I will be able to if I put the image of a person who I think I might have seen on the road someday.
Right.
I can then relate their life situation much better because that is how our brain works. क्योंकि जो दिख रहा है हम उसी के साथ कुछ relate करते हैं.
Exactly.
लाइफ सिचुएशन हम वही क्रिएट करेंगे. अगर फॉरेनर की लगाइए तो हम उसकी लाइफ सिचुएशंस के बारे में सोचेंगे कि अच्छा उसके पास गाड़ी तो होगी ट्रैवल करने के लिए एंड सो ऑन.
वो सहानुभूति नहीं आ पाती है. मतलब जैसे वो empathy it doesn't come in that way. Also the name, that is also important. Means this is just a template that I've taken from the net. But if you are creating a persona, that you have to be careful. Give a name that represents your population. And find a picture that represents the population. And not only that, what are the motivations of that person? What are the pain points that person is facing? You have to include all those things in your persona. You can find many templates, right, on the internet, but generally what you notice is that there is age, what is the family, what is the location of that person, what are the goals, what are the pain points, like frustrations, what motivates this person, what influences this person, and it may depend on your problem statement. What are the factors that you're trying to find? And that is how you create a persona.
You might just be coming to it, but how many such persona do you need to create, and what is the real importance of making it that accurate?
So persona generally is something. जैसे आपने एक product बना दिया, and now down the pipeline, people will be designing or working on those things, right? So every time, let's say if I hire a designer, the designer will not go to the field and then test out the things. And it is not logistically possible also sometimes. So a persona is acting as a benchmark. Yes, this is what represents my current users. Okay. And personas can be created if we are working at different levels. So मान लो अगर हम हर एक stakeholders पे like primary, secondary, tertiary पे जाना चाह रहे हैं, तो we may create personas for all three stakeholders as well.
But can any persona
even one can do. Even one can do. But that one should be accurately represented.
नहीं जैसे हम इसके गेम की बात कर रहे थे.
Right.
मैंने नहीं पता किसी गेम को कंटिन्यू कर रहे हो, but I'm just thinking out loud.
Right.
तो उसके अंदर there will be one persona of the physiotherapist, one persona of the patient who is who that another persona of a child which is 10 years old and we want him to exercise. So
in this case, I would say that the problem statement is very diverse. Like अगर physiotherapy पे जाते हो तो that is a different problem statement. Game के case में एक अलग problem statement हो जाता है. So considering that we stick only to one problem statement, right? Only with let's say children's and gaming, right? So
तो
maybe
कह रहे हैं जो हमने बड़े से उसमें एक छोटा तालाब ढूंढना था, उस तालाब को ढूंढ लिया तो फिर उस तालाब के मगरमच्छ का पर्सोना बना।
हाँ
तो
वैसे
उस
type.
तालाब की मछलियों का मछलियों का पर्सोना बना।
Yeah. तो आपने खूब सारी मछलियां देखी और फिर एक मछली का पर्सोना आपने बना दिया because this one persona is representing a complete target audience. So if I want to say कि if I'm creating a website that is maybe for triple IDD students, which is helping them in understanding different courses and etc. all those things. So I may not lay out all 100 people that I have interviewed. I may interview 100 people or do a survey, but then I'll create one persona of a student that is a university going student. What are the needs of that student? कहाँ पे pain points है, courses में कहाँ दिक्कत आती है उसको. So this one persona will act as an avatar for all those people. If you can put it that way, right? And then oftentimes when we are gathering data, there is something called as affinity mapping, wherein you brainstorm on different solutions, right? What you do is you go to the users, you find out what their problems are, and they can be any type of data that you want. It's not just only the problems, what motivates them, what are the underlying behaviors that lead to doing a certain activity. So you may start collecting them. And this generally is a group activity. 1 to 2 people, if they do it, it will be easier. Right? And after doing that, you put everything on stick notes. And then start forming themes, what we call as clusters, and try to identify patterns. This is one technique of identifying what the problems can be. Or not just problems, what may be the motivations for people or different things that you're trying to identify. And this debate part is important. Now, what happens is you will be working with a team of people. Maybe their thought does not align with you. So generally, क्या होता है ना? We take it on our egos. भाई मैं जो बोल रहा हूँ that is correct. My idea is the best. Screw you. So don't go with that. Always be open to critiques, but critique when you are critiquing, critique in a positive way. You should not pull someone down. कि अच्छा मान लो आप मेरे को idea देते हो कि मेरे को बच्चों के लिए करना है. अरे हाँ ये तो बेकार. Then you will stop saying that in the group. आप बोलेंगे यार कुछ भी बोलो इसको फर्क नहीं पड़ता. So say that yes, this is a good idea, and we can further build on this thing. And this becomes very important because when you're working with a team of engineers, designers, artists, and all, सबके अलग perspectives हैं. They may not understand certain things. You may not understand certain things. So that is one way, and this is very important. I would say, be very open. Another thing is to understand, or what we do is we create an empathy map. Fine. जिसमें we try to find out what is the user saying, what are they thinking, what they do, and how they feel. For example, in this empathy map is for buying a TV. Fine. And they sort of collected all these different things that I was expecting it to be different. कहाँ से खरीदना? Like buying a TV may be a challenge for certain people, right? In fact, most of us, in fact. You may have the budget or you may not have the budget, but which television to buy is important, right? Or for that matter, anything, laptop, mobile, you do take decisions. So there are things that people get confused about, right? So what do they think? Like, where do I start? Perhaps कौन सी brand लेनी है मेरे को? All these are certain things that people are saying. What they think, right? कि सारी चीजें तो similar है इनमें, बहुत ज़्यादा पैसे तो नहीं लगा रहे हम लोग. Is it worth buying? You say I want a high-end laptop, but then you start questioning yourself. Now that is what you're thinking. You said that you want a high-end laptop, but just before purchasing, you started contemplating and thinking, is it even worth it? Should I even spend 1.2 lakhs or whatever the amount is to buy a laptop? Right? Or will it even hold good in the future? These are some thoughts that you start getting.
So this empathy map, you're building on the persona that we had defined.
Right.
As a group.
So persona is one aspect, and empathy map is also for representing a complete population.
उसी persona के लिए हम कर सकते हैं.
उसी persona के लिए आप कर सकते हो. But again, all these findings you will get from or by speaking with a group of people. Yeah.
I'm a diverse group because they all represent the persona or they all know the persona in some way.
Right. So for example, if we created a persona of let's say a person called Sujoy, right? And Sujoy is, so you can replace this by Sujoy. What Sujoy might be thinking. So these are all derived primarily from qualitative research, if you can say that.
This is a beautiful map. I have not seen this ever.
This one? Empathy mapping is something which is very
Amazing. I've been trying to find something useful to help people with empathy. This is very good. Very good. Thank you.
So altogether, it will help you in reading like what decisions you have to take. It gives you a deep insight about what your user might think about, what these people might do, what are they saying. You know, it's above all, you get something about the feelings of it, which is very important. Okay? So let's reflect back, going back to the problem statement that all of you have. तो पहले तो मेरे को ये बताओ आप लोगों के users कौन हैं? If you narrow down on your problem statement.
Accuracy वाला problem. So what can be an update on that one that class आया अच्छे से प्रोजेक्ट इश्यू
So 5 to 10 years of age. ठीक है. What are the needs?
You are already looking at the screen. Why not make it, with activity you will learn.
And then the goal.
They should learn and exercise.
किसकी नीड है वो? आपको इनको देखना है. यूजर वो है.
Needs एक तो प्राइमरी यूजर की है.
प्राइमरी यूजर की नीड मोटर स्किल सीखना है या मस्ती करना है?
नीड वो तो उसका वांटिंग है ना. नीड तो है मोटर स्किल्स.
Wanting is something again that is very personal.
Need is as perceived by the parents or as adults. The child should develop the motor skills. The child doesn't even know कि उसकी वो need है.
तो वो सेकेंडरी यूजर की नीड है.
हाँ.
तो एक बार से मैं ये बोलूंगा कि ये जो यूजर्स के नोशन होते हैं ना, प्राइमरी सेकेंडरी टर्शियरी, ये बहुत ना एम्बिगुअस है कि it is not written in stone that these are primary, secondary, tertiary. This is like a blurry line. Fine, if the parents also start playing with the children, they also become the primary users. So that is how you have to define sometimes. Maybe the user group is 2 of them, small children and parents. That may also happen, right? So why I am saying this is that क्योंकि जब हम लोग समझाते हैं ना या बोलते हैं वो easy होता है communicate करना. But let's say that you now have a team of 10 people and perhaps you want to communicate कि हाँ हम ये करना चाहते हैं. So you will not send audio recordings to them. You will send a written document which will have a clearly written specifications.
देखो ना, अगर तुम इधर बच्चे को यूजर मानते हो, the child needs to have fun because that is how he enjoys. The parents need to have a non-screen based tool or something so that the child can develop motor skills. अब क्या हुआ, जब आप goals को consolidate करोगे इन 4 या 5 needs के अंदर या 4 या 5 statements के अंदर, तो आएगा you have to identify and define some games which develop motor skills and children enjoy doing them. Because you could define 10,000 games where the children don't enjoy. आप उसको बोलो 10 बार repeat कर ऐसे. बच्चा गेम तो है, गेमिफाई कर दो, 10 बार करेगा तो तेरे को 1 कैरेट दूंगा, 2 बार इतना बार करेगा तो दे दूंगा. गेमिफाई भी कर दो, सब कुछ कर दो, पर बच्चा एंजॉय नहीं कर रहा क्योंकि आपने उसको नीड में नहीं लिखा. तो आपको जितने भी पॉसिबल यूजर्स होंगे सबकी नीड और सबके गोल्स बताने होंगे. फिर आपको चूज करना है आप क्या क्या कवर कर सकते हो अपने तालाब में. Fun, enjoy life.
You can also put it this way. So when you create a game, multiple outcomes हो सकते हैं उसके, and maybe they can be classified under your goals. Fine. So the need really may be playful learning, enjoyment, or enjoyment goal.
To move around, बच्चे में एनर्जी है, उसको अपनी एनर्जी एक्सपेंड करनी है, उसकी वो नीड हो सकती है, just to move around.
And the goal can be really learning, developing motor skills, etc. etc. See, what happens is कि आप बोलते हो मैंने ये game बनाया, and this goes very simple, very much like when you're writing research papers. बोलते हैं ना कि we have to define our research questions properly. They should be testable. Now you say कि your product is solving a need. At the end of the day, this whoever is investing in your product, they may ask for results. कि अच्छा, what is the impact of your product? Or let that be. मतलब आप लोग काफी टाइम प्रोजेक्ट करते हो, तो बोलते हो what is the impact on the society? So the goals are actually something that can be measured in that. Have you achieved that goal? Playful learning part, did you achieve it? How can you test it out? You know, if you're saying the enjoyment was my goal, so was it quantifiable? Can you now through some surveys or whatever studies, can you say that these many children said that they enjoyed your game? You know, so that becomes important.
गोल को आप फाइनली मेजर करोगे, बेंचमार्क करोगे ये देखने के लिए कि हाँ मैंने अचीव करा, कितना इफेक्टिवली अचीव करा, एंड सो ऑन.
This part becomes important. So time and time again, you will need to come back. User needs goals. Maybe it evolves as you uncover more findings about those. Anyone else before for their project? If you would like to.
So, my users whoever they are having the car or bike, their needs like save them from the accident.
Accident हो गया. Accident तो आपको already हो गया, because your device is catering to something.
Save them from accident नहीं है, save their life after the accident has happened, है ना? So तुम्हारे users paramedics भी होंगे, ambulance is also a user for you.
Yes.
Ambulance को क्या चाहिए तुम्हारे प्रोडक्ट से? नीड क्या है एम्बुलेंस? क्यों आपका इंटरफेस भी क्यों चाहिए? To identify that a mishap has happened and the location at which it has happened. Location and time of the event or something. And then why does it need it? It wants to reach there or coordinate recovery or क्या कहते हैं those efforts, rescue efforts.
So again, in your case, it is a complex system. There is a user involved who has your device. There are other stakeholders who will be helping those guys in case they meet an accident, right? So इसमें multiple लोग आएगा. And for them maybe जैसे होता है कि मान लो paramedics with ambulance, if we talk about it, they become your user, right? For them, the need really becomes to understand timely where the accident has occurred.
Ideally, they might also want to know the gravity of the accident,
Right.
so that they can arrange and bring the required rescue material or first aid material with them. अगर उनको ग्रेविटी भी पता लगती है तो भाई इतने गाड़ियों का एक्सीडेंट हुआ, इतना बड़ा एक्सीडेंट हुआ, ये इम्पैक्ट था. The more information they have, the better prepared they can come. जो यूजर है जिसके पास डिवाइस था, अगर उसी डिवाइस के साथ कुछ फर्स्ट एड का मटेरियल भी हो या कुछ ऐसा मटेरियल भी हो जो कि पासर बाय इसको गाइड कर सके कि सीपीआर कैसे देना है, फर्स्ट एड कैसे लगाना है, तो भी उसकी लाइफ बच सकती है. वो एम्बुलेंस तो फिर भी आधे घंटे में आएगी, यहाँ पासर बाय तो हो सकते हैं. अगर उन्हीं को गाइडेंस आ जाए, प्लीज हेल्प, प्लीज, मतलब अपने आप ही वो डिवाइस शाउट करे प्लीज हेल्प, ठीक है, to give CPR, you have to do these steps. अपने आप एक routine में ये recording ही चलती रहे, किसी को कुछ नहीं करना. स्पीकर पे आ रहा है ताकि जो भी आसपास है और एक दो भाषाओं में आ रहा है ताकि डिपेंडिंग ऑन you can choose which languages. कि मैं टिपिकली हिंदी भाषी जगह में घूम रहा हूँ तो हिंदी में आ रहा है, मैं आंध्रा में हूँ तो तेलुगु में आ रहा है, कर्नाटका में हूँ तो कन्नड़ में आ रहा है वही मैसेज, ताकि बंदे की लाइफ बचे. दैट इज व्हाट इज मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, दैट इज द गोल. उसके लिए जो करना है तुम अपने प्रोडक्ट में डाल सकते हो. दैट इज द वैल्यू एड. सो यू अंडरस्टैंड द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ दिस स्टेप. appears to be very simple, but if you understand the needs and the goals, you can enrich your product and bring more value to all the users involved.
At the end of the day, the goal is to save lives, prevent injuries, right? So paramedics, if I just put it in very simple terms, obviously we need to elaborate a little bit, but in this case, I will say कि paramedics, या जो भी emergency services, they need information about the person who has met with an accident so that they can save lives, like all these things, right? So now this becomes somewhat understandable. मैं ये चाहता हूँ कि ML मॉडल लगा के इधर ये डिटेक्ट कर लिया वो हो गया नहीं ना. भाई कहना क्या चाहते हो?
मतलब अभी जब हम बात ही कर रहे हैं मेरे माइंड में ऐसा कुछ आ रहा है कि हाउ अबाउट हैविंग अ काइंड ऑफ अ डैश कैम. ठीक है, डैश कैम पता है क्या होता है? डैशबोर्ड के ऊपर एक कैमरा लगाओ जो गाड़ी के अंदर का भी फोटो ले सकता है और बाहर का भी ले सकता है. ठीक है, हैविंग अ डैश कैम व्हिच इन द इवेंट ऑफ एन एक्सीडेंट sends a clip of last 10 seconds, just 10 seconds both inside and outside. अब उससे क्या होगा, अंदर कितने लोग हैं, ऑक्यूपेंसी कितने लोग इमीडिएटली अंदर इंपैक्टेड हैं वो पता लग गया, किस तरह का एक्सीडेंट है, कितना क्या ग्रेविटी ऑफ एक्सीडेंट है वो भी पता लग गया. पैरामेडिक्स कैन बी बेटर प्रिपेयर्ड. So yours might not be an independent product, but an add-on to the dashboard. Just a thought. But as soon as you talk about needs and goals and brainstorm around it, you will get feature set that you will want to offer. What is most important is that you should be able to inform, whichever way you are able to do it. अगर तुम उस इमेज की जगह तुमने इमेज प्रोसेस करके निकाल ही लिया कि 2 लोग हैं तो 2 लोग तुम खाली नंबर भेज दो. 2 people in the car, 5 outside. 7 लोगों के हिसाब से फर्स्ट एड का मटेरियल लेकर आओ. बट दैट नंबर इज इंपॉर्टेंट. नहीं तो एक मैन आ भी जाएगी पर वो एक्चुअली हेल्प भी नहीं कर पाएगी.
Since we are discussing a lot of ideas, and this becomes the next step.
बाकियों से भी पूछना है.
बताओ और भी लोग हैं?
So यश, सार्थक तुम जिसके साथ आए हो जो कि यहाँ पे एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता है तो उसका प्रोडक्ट और यूजर और नीड क्या है? You must have had a discussion. How is it different from what we have with Nintendo and Xbox and all that?
I was thinking to make it like a much cheaper
Cost.
for like casual.
You know, this cost factor always surprises me. Because we always think that we can come up with something cheaper, but the reality is you can buy the hardware which is much cheaper. It's the software that costs a lot. Like to be eye tracker, the device itself costs less. But if the software is like 15-13 lakhs or even more than that, an eye tracking software. Sometimes the physical product is much cheaper. Most of you, when you're working, you think about ML algorithms and other things. Perhaps you might be patenting it over the period of time. So be very careful when you say cost. I will make it cheaper. And all in all, from what, in my personal experience, whatever you design, right, everything has a cost. You may not be able to target everyone. You may not be able to create a solution that is universal. Okay. So now that will That is something that depends on the solution that you're creating and the business model that you're trying to create, but everything comes at a cost. And then you will have to find people who are willing to pay that cost. Right?
तुम दिगंबर के साथ आई सेम प्रोडक्ट
Just as a,
अच्छा ओके
just as a, they're moving it, you can be one to solve it, but he has some experience. Have something. So, okay.
ठीक so get him added to the classroom and the WhatsApp group
सब चीज़ से अपडेट करना पड़ेगा.
राहुल को लिखते ठीक है
So, up till now, we have been saying, what are the possibilities? We may do this. कुछ ना कुछ कर सकते हैं, bracelets लगा सकते हैं, depth sensor use कर सकते हैं, dash cams लगा सकते हैं, app बना सकते हैं. So these are all ideas that we get, and they are an important part of whatever discussions we have, whatever product ideation or things that you're trying to come up with. Right? So this becomes interesting because everything we do with idea generally starts with B. Brain. Right? So we are doing brainstorming, brain dumping, brain writing, and brain walking. चल आप लोगों को खड़ा कर रहे थे लेकिन चलाएं. Perhaps it's brainstorming. But anyway, so brainstorming becomes an important technique, often done in groups. Many people will try to come up with ideas. So the whole emphasis is not on the quality, but initially on the quantity of ideas that are being generated. Fine. So जो भी idea मिलता है, that idea is a good one, and we stick it on the wall. Fine. And then later on, team further ponders on whether we want to go ahead with this idea or not. Can we mix and match certain things together? Typically, this is how a session might look like. I mean, now this is quite fancy. Oftentimes, you will notice designers just putting sticky notes. हो सकता है आप बस paper उस पे ही कर रहे हो, and or you may just tear a piece of paper and then work on it. Anything is fine, fine, as long as it gets you going, and as long as it is not causing conflicts. So generally, you have to set ground rules for your brainstorming session, because it can go on and on for hours if went unmoderated. The best is set a time limit. It was 10 minutes. We only speak about something that is relevant. We will not sway away. But कभी होता है ना कि अलग tangent में चले गए, come back. And this is very normal क्योंकि conversations हो रहे हैं, कुछ भी discussions होता है. So maybe I'm talking about water controller. Suddenly I jump to agriculture and perhaps I went to something else. So I want to just come back to the water controller. Right? So again, we have to begin with a problem statement or a brief. This part I already mentioned. Refrain judgment and criticism. कि हम ये कर लेते हैं, अरे नहीं यार हम नहीं करेंगे, सच है ये कर लो. Let's not do that. Fine. Let's also think of more things. Fine. And come up with really wacky ideas. Well, don't think whether it is technically possible or not, whether this thing is doable or not. Fine. Whatever has been impossible has been achieved. If you really think about that, everything we thought about was impossible. We have achieved that. So there is nothing wrong in thinking about impossible. Fine. So you have to be that way and setting the rules, right? Aim for quantity, because eventually all these quantity will breed in quality. Build on ideas. ये नहीं कि भैया इसने बोला I will not consider this. Maybe if you mix two ideas, something might happen. Much better may come out. Now, this is something that I have noticed many of us struggle with. Because we are so tuned to writing things. Which bhi hota hai, we simply start writing. Even if I ask you to sketch things out, you will start writing. अगर मैं बोलता हूँ एक scenario sketch करो of your product, you may start writing a description. Right? Try to be visual. You don't have to be a Picasso or someone. Simple doodles, stick figures, they will do. Shitty diagrams will also do. Fine? But stay visual because that helps. And because these visuals are sort of ambiguous, right? It leaves more room for creativity, more questions, more answers that way. and allow one conversation at a time. 10 लोग एक साथ बोलेंगे, कुछ नहीं पता चलने वाला. So these are some ground rules that are there when you're saying, yeah, I want to conduct a brainstorming session. Perhaps we should do this in the session as well. Now, ये flowchart है generally, but taken from Wikipedia. You can take a look at it. All it says is, आपने कोई warm up exercise चालू की. So generally, what happens is, or before starting any brainstorming activity, I give a small or one page that has multiple circles on it, and then I ask my students to draw something, imagine something, and there are like a grid of 3 cross 3 or something circles over there, right? And then these guys start doing that. So what happens is when you do such type of activity, your brain gets activated, the blood starts flowing because you're now thinking. And that is the warm-up session that happens before brainstorming. So I did think, yeah, I'll bring it over here, but I was running late, so I didn't find it. But anyway. So brainstorming is an individual activity. Group activity, but brain dumping becomes an individual activity. Wherein whatever comes to your mind, you simply start writing, putting it on a piece of paper, right? And it helps you lay down all your thoughts. So why is it important? In fact, why is writing of any idea on anything, piece of paper, sketching it out, why is it even important? Yeah, भूलना जो. भूलना जो और.
Brings in a perspective that brings in more clarity of और क्या है उस context में, setting में.
Brings in clarity, right? Their thoughts are intangible, and then you finally give them a form, tangible form, through writing, through your sketches, and we may retain something that is tangible, right? So काफी सारी चीजें होती हैं, and writing, drawing, sketching, or rather sketching, I would say, not drawing. Sketching becomes an important part, right? Pardon? Yeah, it also helps us think about the next steps, right? So as we lay down things, we get clarity, and we also start thinking about what may happen next. It is quite an interesting thing, and we should engage more and more in that. I mean, in boring lectures, we do sit down and do this, right? That's the base for that. I used to do that. Perhaps some of you might do that, but there is nothing wrong in sketching out your ideas. Again, brain writing. Multiple people are thinking, generating ideas, and then writing about it. Fine. You can use different cards, different sheets, papers, or whatever, chart papers, whatever helps to further explain your idea, or mix and match, combine all these different things. ये भी बहुत interesting in walking. So, जब हम बैठे होते हैं ना, in a sedentary position, we are not able to think much. But a moving body generates more ideas. Sometimes you will notice that, I'm not sure, in certain UX research teams, you might see people dancing. And then they are going with this whole notion of brainstorming and other things. Some people find it funny, ideation ही तो करना था. But it's primarily to pump blood in your brain, to get you moving, to shatter that sedentary,
Yes,
नहीं, I will not say that it is similar to music. In fact, मैं तो कभी music सुनते सुनते पढ़ नहीं पाया, ideas generate कर पाया. I really got lost in music.
Action. Here we're talking about physical action. That when the body moves, more blood circulates, and not just the brain gets. The brain anyway gets more blood. Heart से जो सबसे बड़ी arteries है वो brain की तरफ जाती है. The brain anyways gets more blood, but once you circulate that blood because of body movement, सारे body parts में मिलेगा, brain को naturally जाना देगा. So that is how it is, and that is what you want to use. Music सुनना तो it could be like a lullaby. You might fall asleep after some time. Music could be a distraction. Dance is a very different thing.
And it's not like you have dance करते करते सोच रहे हो. मतलब you may have danced and then you started thinking. Because we think with our bodies, honestly. कभी कभी होता है ना कि you're doing something, some particular action, and all of a sudden some idea click. Sometimes it's not just. Sometimes we have to let go of all the ideas and do nothing. Then the reflection comes in.
So one of you does any meditation.
So there are few meditations. The first step is dancing,
Hmm.
rigorous dance, and then you sit for it. And it has a completely different experience.
Me now. I'm not sure how many of you have read Osho, but Osho did mention that dancing is the deepest form of meditation. Backbone of that. Right? But anyway, so these are certain things that we do when we want to generate ideas. So above all, the rules, always keep them in mind. Because when you work with teams, things tend to sway away. So be working in a time limit, work on quantity, do not criticize, come back to wherever you are going, like your problem statement. Try to stay visual and one conversation at a time. These are ground rules and they may work for everything. Okay. So should we define one single problem statement जिसके ऊपर हम ये activities कर सकते हैं? बताओ.
नहीं सॉल्व हो जाएगी.
कोई एक generic type को उठा लेते हैं. बताओ. हमारे वाले पे. So let's take a voting. Let's first. Do we have a चलो कोई नहीं. So we'll just do a poll. How many of you like pitch in ideas, right? It can be anything. And then we will select one by popular voting. Accidental idea or the writing. Okay, so okay,
Wonderful.
whatever.
Wonderful.
We're saying some of the ideas that tend towards wicked problems. But yeah, anyway, more ideas. One problem statement that you guys would like to work, the time frame is 10 to 15 minutes. Okay? But what might be your problem statements? Or ideas first that you like to work? Hello. Classrooms. How we can improve classrooms? The idea posture. Posture के ऊपर हो गया. और सही कैसे आप लोग बहुत सारे विकेट प्रॉब्लम बता दोगे. Work on, or let's try to identify some very simple. Yeah. Or
Day planning.
day planning. Okay. ठीक है. Should we move now? इस पे आप लोग काम करना चाहोगे for this session. You all give your ideas on this stage. Voting.
Let's start from one by one. So Yash, which one would you want to work on?
Classroom and day planning. Day planning and body.
Environment, okay. अब ये बता दो हाँ can select multiple ideas from the but you go with the maximum
Water pollution and day planning.
day planning
मेरा भी water pollution.
आपका भी water pollution आपका इनमें से और like चलो कौन सा मीटिंग करेंगे और क्या
नया आइडिया
let's just put it in environment.
environment
I'm fine with environment and I'm fine with environment. Okay. Now, let's narrow down on our problem statement. What with the environment? What do we want to do? Let's localize. Let's come to reply details. इधर हमें क्या करना है environment? What will be our problem statement? Temperature for where we compare need. Cold Delhi starting with that. और क्या क्या हो सकता है temperature?
Secondly, जब मैं आर्मी से आता हूँ, बहुत है आपको कुछ higher होगा. Then in that case, we can establish some mechanism that will basically like soil moisture, that will turn out the problem.
You're telling me the
सॉल्यूशन पे नहीं आना
problem
प्रॉब्लम बताना पहले
problem क्या है? Pest control. Okay. और
Cost of maintaining the environment.
अच्छा cost, pest, anyone else? Recycling. Okay.
E-waste management.
Hmm?
Electronic waste.
E-waste management. Great. ठीक है. So should I take the liberty to randomly pick up something? तो जो भी आप लोग एक problem statement बताओगे, that we want to work in, you will have to give a preamble. और जिसने suggest किया वही preamble देगा मेरे को. ठीक है? I should randomly pick e-waste management.
Many times we have some electronic components which are dumb or they are useless, they become faulty after prolonged use. So if we throw them right away in the dustbin or at some other place, so there is a chance that they will cause some radiation. Maybe there will be some harmful effect. So can we, to create a system such that I'm not able to exactly portray this, but in a brief way I'm trying to explain. So to create a system such that these products, these components which we are not able to use or they are faulty, maybe we can, sometimes they are module based thing, not a single component. So can we like put it into a system where usable components can be extracted or the other components which are harmful, they can be properly dumped.
So if I get it right, primarily what happens is we have many electronic equipments in the institute along with different labs that use all these things, right? And we cannot just dump them. They may cause radiation, toxic fumes, again, more harmful than environment. Right? If you see somewhat, it is also similar to recycling of the components by taking them out. So, अभी currently क्या measures हैं institute के पास counter this?
Currently, to manage the electronic waste, we I think do not have any system which can do this. Although there are
There is one plant-based drive where we can put those electronic.
There is
There is one e-waste drive.
e-waste drive.
Yeah.
which is conducted by a student affairs department. So there we can talk.
So actually, presently on campus, wherever there are dustbins in the buildings, various buildings, we have this red dustbin also, which is meant for e-waste. Now, we are very smart people. We put food waste also into that red dustbin. So it's kind of going waste. That entire initiative of collecting e-waste and not then depending to segregate it something is futile. But the institute has done some stuff so that the e-waste can be separately collected and then disposed of to these recycling companies or agents who take it away and then recycle it in a responsible manner, dispose it off in a responsible manner. But it's, as I mentioned, it's not effective. People do not know where to throw the wires. They would तीन डस्टबिन दिख रहे हैं, किसी में भी खाना खाया उसका वेस्ट डाल दिया. So sensitivity is low, even though it's very clearly demarcated. This is e-waste, but I've seen many times. I've seen food waste also in those dustbins.
So now we know the problem. We know some initiatives that the institute has taken. Can we crystallize the problem statements?
Do we need to think of a persona first?
For the time being, we just think about the problem statement. Of course, we will get into the ideation part.
Okay.
So, first one, we can, or I can say, we all are the stakeholders, multiple levels, right? From students to staff, everyone is involved. From what I understand, store and purchase department is also involved, finances, everyone is involved. So, institute has a hierarchy of perhaps, I'm not sure it's recent place, but there are different departments and they all contribute to some e-waste. Most of it is consumable, which are coming from the labs, right? And some of it because the equipment goes off. And then we need to fix that, right? So how can we manage e-waste on campus? What measures we can take to raise awareness about e-waste so that people become more conscious about disposing of labs, okay? So if we start with perhaps these questions initially, that would be a good starting point. So I see we can create a group of three people or तीन या चार लोग group बना सकते हैं. No, that because Marcus तीन है ना. So I'm thinking more with Marcus. Right. So groups बना लेते हैं तीन के and come up with ideas as much as you can. And you can sign, you can use the board, you can use the part of
Whatever.
you can use the board as well. Right? So one concept, you know the group. This is your mother. आपकी लोगों को और एक मार्कर है आप लोग नहीं बना लो. Okay. Yeah. ये देखो. Now this.
मैं तुम्हारी टीम में सोनिया थी ना तुम्हारे साथ. हाँ तो फिर मैं इनकी टीम में आ जाता हूँ, तब इनकी हो जाएंगे. इसमें क्या है?
Do one more step, another 2 minutes. That is for brain walking. So आप लोगों ने जो भी ideas generate किए, maybe this can switch means एक दूसरे के ideas देखो थोड़ा discuss करो, and then come back to your idea and see what can be. Just do that and this is for 2 minutes.
इसमें कितना अवेयरनेस वाला बना है?
ideas जाके देख सकते हैं.
अवेयरनेस वाला रिपोर्ट बना रहा है उसमें लाइन आगे अवेयरनेस की बात.
सबका देख सकते हो, सब अपना बता सकते हो. Just 2 minutes.
Interesting. सोनिया, आपके आइडियाज कहाँ हैं? कौन पढ़ेगा उनको, कैसे पढ़ेगा? सो आई थिंक हमने जो सेग्रीगेशन वाला पॉइंट लिखा है उसके अंदर हम ये भी ऐड कर सकते हैं कि जब कोई डाल रहा है ई वेस्ट उससे पहले या गुड प्रैक्टिस बता दें कि फॉल्टी है कि वर्किंग है, उसको बस लेबल कर दो ई वेस्ट डालते हुए, देन रीयूज करना आसान हो जाएगा। किसको रीयूज करना है, किसको डायरेक्टली आर्ट के लिए भेज देना है, किसको कहाँ भेज देना है, तो मैं खुद ही एक छोटा सा लेबल लगा दूँ। या ई वेस्ट के वो तो यूजली कहाँ होता है, रेडियो एक्टिव में यूज कर पाता है ना। तो क्या कर सकते हैं, फॉर एग्जाम्पल वी कुड हैव अ सेट ऑफ स्टिकर्स नेक्स्ट टू माई डस्टबिन। कहीं से कुछ और नहीं करना, स्टिकर है उसमें लिखा है फॉल्टी, यूजेबल और क्या कहते हैं हेवी केमिकल्स या कुछ इस तरह के दो तीन लेबल्स हैं, तो बस वो लेबल्स आप अपने इमेज पे पेस्ट करें ताकि उसके बाद ये हम ऐड कर सकते हैं यहाँ पे। ऐड कर दो। हाँ हाँ, अरे यही तो काम है। और वो सेग्रीगेटिंग में ही आ जाएगा 10th वाला। सॉरी, हाँ and we have to build upon each other's ideas.
2 minutes are over. All of us can go back to our places.
इसको यहीं पे 10 भी यहाँ पे डाल दो।
ठीक है, so सबने एडिशन किया जितना हो पाया, we have done a good job. Now what we do is very good, so we can call it. You may have ideated some 10 ideas, 15, 5, whatever the number. इनमें से आप एक बेस्ट आइडिया जो आप लोग को लगता है कि you can please send to all the ideas and tell us what your ideas are. So we can take it as ideas. And then we can propose 1 or 2 ideas that we maybe so best to protect because yeah. So you can explain your idea and then suggest which one you guys are going to live with. And let's keep it like a live interactive session. We can ask them questions, we can build upon their work, and also suggest them ways in which it can be. Yeah. So intention we can easily educate the new companies as well as we can spread the by that the management. We can also organize sort of like competition and we get the events to the participants, they build some creative options. So it will be useful for them as well as for campus. I think this part about giving events is correct because in my experience that I want to ask to take something on the best useful things and first I wanted to be I'll go by say this part so one more point was there so many kind of utilizing the areas to another area. Then we can put the resume in particular place and try it. Great. So next. Thank you. कुछ है कमेंट्स के लिए कुछ है पूछना है I want to sort of library of the image तो जब कंपटीशन में आएंगे हम एक भूल होगा कि किसी से तो हमने उसने कहा
साथ में यही तो कहा कि इंस्टेड ऑफ यू आइडेंटिफाइंग इवेंट्स योरसेल्फ, हम आपको हैकाथन में बुलाएंगे और यहाँ पे हमने इवेंट्स का क्लस्टर डाल दिया। ठीक है, अब आपको जो उठाना है उसमें तो उठा अपना बनाओ। आप नया नहीं क्रिएट करोगे, वही तो कह रहा था ना कि नहीं तो मैं जाता हूँ मार्केट से थर्मोकोल खरीदता हूँ, मैं कहता हूँ कि ये वेस्ट था।
Next week.
हमने अपने आइडिया को चार चार हिस्सों में डिस्पोज किया है। सेग्रीगेशन, यूजिंग, रिपर्पसिंग और अवेयरनेस। ठीक है, सबसे पहले तो हम क्लस्टर्स देखते हैं। तो बेसिकली हम क्या करेंगे, जो अभी हमारे डस्टबिन हैं वो है तो सेम शेप के, सिर्फ वो अलग कलर है, वो बहुत जगह है, जैसा तुमने बताया बहुत जगह जहाँ होने की जरूरत भी नहीं है। ठीक है, तो उनको एक तो शेप पहले तो एक किसी इक्विपमेंट का देंगे, जैसे कैपेसिटर का शेप दे दिया तो पहले से पता रहेगा इसमें खाना तो नहीं डालेंगे। ठीक है, और जैसे ही उसका लिड ओपन किया तो एक 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 ऑडिटरी या विजुअल वो है कि आर यू श्योर यू आर पुटिंग ई वेस्ट इनटू इट, ताकि एक वो भी अवेयरनेस भी रहेगा। एक बार गलती से डाल भी दिया बंदे ने, अगली बार तो उसको पता रहेगा इसमें ई वेस्ट भी डालना है। ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज, हाँ दूसरा पॉइंट है, अगर डस्टबिन के बगल में थोड़े लेबल्स डाल दें कि क्या अभी भी ये काम करता है, इज इट वर्किंग, क्योंकि होता है ना बैटरी थोड़ी सी बची है, वो वर्किंग है अभी, या फिर डेड हो चुकी है, या फिर फॉल्टी है, या फिर इसके अंदर केमिकल है, कि स्टिकर्स हम डस्टबिन के बगल में रखें ताकि बंदा जब फेंके वो स्टिकर चिपका के फेंके, ताकि हमें लास्ट में सेग्रीगेशन में आसानी हो। ठीक है, दूसरा था हमारा सिक्स, फोर एंड सिक्स। सो हम एक प्लेटफॉर्म बनाएंगे, जैसे बहुत सारे प्लेटफॉर्म हैं ऑलरेडी, एक और प्लेटफॉर्म बनाएंगे जिसमें मान लो कि हॉस्टल में किसी ने नया फोन लिया, उसका दूसरा फोन ऑलमोस्ट खराब हो चुका है, तो उसमें बता देगा ठीक है मेरा एक फोन खराब हो चुका है, और वो जो फोन है वो कलेक्ट होकर लाइब्रेरी में जाएगा। हम ईवीएस लाइब्रेरी बनाएंगे जिससे तुम कंपटीशन करा, जहां से तुम्हारा कंपटीशन होगा लाइब्रेरी हमारे से हम प्रोवाइड कर देंगे। ठीक है, और दूसरा है, हाँ अब जैसे तुमने कंपटीशन कराया, हम वही कह रहे हैं कि एक तो तुम उसको दोगे सबसे ज्यादा अवार्ड, या फिर जो भी हैकेथॉन जीतेगा जिसने उस ईवीएस से सबसे अच्छा बनाया। दूसरा हम ये देंगे ओवर एन ईयर, जिसने सबसे ज्यादा ईवीएस डंप किया, जिसने सबसे ज्यादा कचरा बनाया। दिस कैन बी वन वे। नाइन्थ अवेयरनेस, एक चीज अवेयरनेस, सही बोला उन्होंने कि पहली क्लास में बता दो कि, क्योंकि हम काफी कम बच्चों को पता है कि ये कोई कंपनी है जो कॉलेज आती है और ईवीएस लेके जाती है, तो हम वैसे कहते हैं कचरे में जाएगा हम फेंक देते हैं, लेकिन अब हमें पता होगा कि एक कंपनी है जो एक जगह है जहां वो जा रहा है उसका सही पर्पज हो रहा है। दूसरा है हाँ भाई, ये एक आर्ट बना दो, कुछ कुछ बढ़िया स्कल्पचर बना दो उसमें से। और एक, जैसे तुमने कंपटीशन कराया, हम सोच रहे हैं एक छोटा सा 2 क्रेडिट का कोर्स कर दो जिसमें ये ई वेस्ट का मैनेजमेंट कैसे होता है वो बता दो।
एक आइडिया already labeled, it's working, but I don't need it. The plans are very nice. So it's waste for me, but it is still working. Such components can be picked up and put in a tinkering lab. तो भाई किसी को वायर्स चाहिए, वायर्स बिल्कुल ठीक है, मेरे काम की नहीं है, मैं कल तो कितनी वायर संभाल के रखूं, I just put them there. So that is another way that the strategy could be used. वही तो repurposing hackathon बनाएंगे तो उसमें
बस पड़े हुए हैं कि किसी वायर के नाम पे एक वायर चाहिए ना, तो वहां से ईवीएस मिल जाएगा। कौन सी चीज कितना यूजेबल है, बैटरी बता रहे हो थोड़ी सी बची है, मतलब कोई उसको लेके पता चला उसने कनेक्ट ही किया अपना मोटर, पहली बार में पता चलता है। तो वो सारी वर्किंग वगैरह अगर कर ही रहे हैं तब
हाँ भाई, कि तो इस डील करके
so you are rewarding irresponsibility.
तो सिर्फ हाँ भाई वो ही है ना,
मुझे रिवॉर्ड मिलेगा।
That's success.
just talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, wait. For example, battery का shape, power bank का funky shape है.
Educated, so they know that this is e-waste. But people are not so aware about it. So, जो हमारे workers होते हैं, सबसे reason खाना जरूरी होता है कि किसी के घर से या फिर कुछ भी कचरा उठा रहे हो. हाँ. Consumption है. मतलब उसको creatively उस पे सबसे पहले segregation कैसे करना है उसको. एक तो उन्हें creatively उसका एक तो incorporate को use कर सकते हैं. और एक होता है product को भी sell कर सकते हैं segment में. तो ठीक है.
इस तरह हम आरपीएस बनाने की बात कर रहे हैं.
There are some certain things जो करेंगे. This is part of it. Based to work and awareness are 1.9. These are things that of the cross or your practice. Anything else?
जैसे ठीक है हमारे पास ये प्रोडक्ट रिसीव करने के बाद फिर तो वो मॉड्यूल बेस्ड प्रोडक्ट मॉड्यूल बेस्ड प्रोडक्ट वो भी हो सकता है मॉड्यूल भी उस केस में सिस्टम जो प्रोडक्ट को ट्रबल शूट यहाँ पे के प्रोडक्ट्स यहाँ पे so here we can categorize initially जब ये स्टार्टअप लॉन्च कर रहे हैं वहाँ पे हम दिखा सकते हैं उसके बाद ट्रबल अगर हो पाएगा अगर ट्रबल शूट हो पाता है देन इट्स फाइन एज अ प्रोडक्ट बनाते हैं उसको फिर रीयूज करते हैं देन मैप की कौन से यूजर हैं तो उसको दोबारा ले सकते हैं जिसके यूज किया था वो उसको ट्रबल शूट करना चाहता है तो वो टेक बैक ले सकता है विद सम चार्ज मार्केट नहीं यूज करना चाहता है मार्केट ऐसा होता है उसके बाद अगर ये ट्रबल शूट देन हम इसके module we can place can basically send this module into a kind of place assembly there we can dismantle all the components हम सिस्टम करके निकाल सकते हैं now once the components are out we can identify that how many components for example in electronic products there are 3 components like adapter and many more which can be used तो उसको लेके हम अलग से the other items which are ready we have to some outer agency that will handle उसको proper तरीके से high temperature ले जाके
Questions? Anyways, you were at least I was unaware of this. I mean, honestly, like when I started my career in teaching, there's few them here. So in one semester, I got this opportunity to create a lab. We were calling creative workshop lab. मेरा पूरा point उसमें ये था कि let's scavenge the electronic equipment and then work. So I created first lab over there, do paper circuits and all that. But अभी आप जैसे बता रहे हो, it is interesting because you can collect these, we can scavenge and create. In fact, there have been some very interesting people in electronics, like people like Mark Kirwan, who invented fields like beam robotics, which were inspired by biological features and models. Right? They have in fact written a book called Junk Bots, Bug Bots, Bots on Wheels, which tells about how you can scavenge electronics and make small robotic pieces. Art is something which I have particularly noticed in engineering college. It becomes difficult. No matter how much we try, for some reason, because you have that analytical brain. But let's say we have a library and we open up art residencies program as well. I mean, those are the ideas. It's hard. Wherever I also sort of tried with arts and all. So, which we want e-waste. Make a statement, but you don't get access to e-waste because the government norms or the institute norm says no, you cannot recycle or reuse the IT. That's maybe some policies which are a little bit flexible. So yes, it's very interesting. You guys want to take a break, but then move on to the next part. We all can just bring a cup of coffee back to the class and expect whatever wants best to. I'll continue with the next part. So, retain your ideas for this next part of right. So, any observations when you guys did brain walk? Although it was a very rudimentary sort of a thing, but the organized way. But एक दो ideas तो उठाए होंगे इधर उधर से. In fact, I observed most of you guys did that, which is good. So that is what the whole activity is. Thank you. So retain your ideas. Brainstorming में आपने जो भी बोले. So sometimes what happens is that we are unable to move forward with our ideas. We may have many ideas, right? But कभी समझ नहीं आता. So there is this technique called scamper. It's substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. Right? That is what the short form is. You can find a lot on the internet, but let's just see it in this way, right? Can we replace one thing with another? So let's say keep paper ka bundle hai. I want to stack it properly. What can I do? You know, maybe stacking is not helping, so मैंने rubber band लगा दिया. Yeah, maybe I put a paper clip. या मैंने उसको staple कर दिया. So you substituted one thing with another. Or can we combine two or different things together, make it much better? Fine. So paper clip, stapler, or clip बना दिया तो which combines almost the same thing. So you are punching it as well. And can we improve certain things? तो ये वाली जो paper clip है आपकी, जब आप इसमें paper लगाते हो तो paper tends to move out because it's a smooth surface. So improving it, so they added this rubber thing over it. Existing idea, but improved a little bit. Color coding भी हो सकती है इनसे, right? हाँ, we can now color code on functions. Or modify it a little bit because these are round. That is why the paper is flowing. So आपने notice किया होगा कुछ clips ऐसी होती हैं. And also they modified the existing idea, existing solution product, whatever it is, by a little bit. Or can you put it to something else for a different use altogether? Fine. So reset button के लिए तो काम आ जाएगा. Fine. Or can we eliminate something? So stapler causes a lot of issues, right? वो pen आ जाता है, dark छोड़ देता है paper, put punches, holes and all these things. So they came up with this pump fastener. The staple basically what it does is paper को ही मोड़ देता है उठा के. So the whole clip or these pins have been removed altogether. So they have been eliminated. Right? Or is there anything else that we can do to reverse the whole process? Can it be used for something else altogether, or can we improve it? Fine. So using a scamper technique, can you think of your ideas again, reflect back, mix and match? You can bookmark the slide later on when I pull this thing back up. So up, देख लेना बाद. But you can use this thing. I'll upload this. Fine, and then mix and match, and perhaps upload your ideations on Plus. So this is one technique wherein when we want more to do with ideas, what else can we do apart from ideation? How do we mix and match these ideas to get better results? Okay. Another thing is we create mood boards. So in one of these companies, I'm not sure which one, I think it was Idea or something. So they have this idea room. So oftentimes what happens is कि हम लोगों को कुछ idea नहीं आता कई बार. There is this mental block that happens, right? And you want to come over, like उससे बाहर निकलना है आपको. But then you observe that when you are doing a totally unrelated activity, you get better ideas. Sometimes you have been stuck with a problem statement for a long time. You finally give up. You are having a cup of coffee, chai पी रहे हो, खिचड़ी खा रहे हो, जो भी कर रहे हो, and all of a sudden, you get that wow moment. Okay, I should do this. And that happened because you were not in that zone of your idea. You were not narrowed down, but your mind had sort of diverged into it. Right? So mood board becomes very important in that case. So this company that I'm talking about, I think it is Ideo. I may be wrong. So what they did was they created a room जहाँ पे बस अलग-अलग images खूब सारे. And if people are getting stuck, they simply go to that room. They break free from their stream of thoughts and this thing. So mood boards are typically used by product designers, used by UI designers, and many other people to get inspiration from. So even you can use a mood board, create inspiration for your products and other things that come along. So this is one of the techniques that is often used in ideation. Okay. Which questions अभी तक कुछ पूछना है? ठीक है. So with this, we close the ideation part. Fine. So now your assignment being that you look at this camper technique, look at your existing e-waste idea, sketch out different things, perhaps use camper to see what can be modified, what can be improved, substituted, eliminated. Yeah, if something can be used for a different purpose. Like for example, ई-वेस्ट कलेक्ट करके आपने आर्ट बना दिया, दैट्स अ होल रिवर्स प्रोसेस altogether. Fine. So with this, we are done with this session. Any questions?
So, key assignment this week is to finally zero in on your product and populate its specifications. So, see, the last part of this course is to give a demo of your product. So, and has, if you're not doing the course, so you can consider yourself little differently. But those who are doing the course, you have to show a working demo. It has a date in the overall course assessment and evaluation. So, I would say, we do not take a very complex problem as a part of it. And even if it's a part of the, so you might suppose want to work on this anklets and bracelets. If you finally find out that this is very, very complex, doesn't work, then you demonstrate only one part of it, not the remaining part of it. But take at least one part of your product to conclusion so that you can demonstrate it. Okay, so it should not be कि the demonstrable part है वो इतना छोटा है कि it doesn't justify you the right grade in the product. So demo doesn't mean कि grade अच्छा हो जाएगा. Demo means course complete हुआ. Okay, but आपका जो course में grade है, that will finally depend on overall what did you achieve as a group. We are strongly dissuading against individual projects. We are saying अगर आप इस class में अकेले भी हो, bring in 2 or 3 friends from outside so that they can be a part of your project group. क्योंकि ये project ऐसा नहीं है कि अकेला एक इंसान कर सके. So you can bring in people who are not a part of the course, who are not getting credits for it, but they are enjoying the process. They are doing the learn. They are enjoying it for the learning part. But जिनको ग्रेड मिलना है आप ध्यान रखें, आपका ग्रेड उस पर डिपेंड करेगा कि आपने क्या कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी हैंडल करी, क्या प्रोडक्ट बनाया, क्या आउटपुट दिख रहा है, प्रोग्रेस है. All those things they will become a part of the overall score that you will get. But अगर आप डेमो कुछ कर ही नहीं पा रहे हो तो उसमें पूरा 0 मिल जाए. तो अगर बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रोडक्ट है जिसको फिजिबल ही नहीं है कि आप इतना बनाओ, तो यू डू अ स्मॉलर पार्ट. आप बोलो ही कि मेरा टारगेट ये था, which is a part of a bigger product which I will continue as a part of my startup or XYZ, whichever way, which is fine. The key thing is that you have to go through all the phases of the product development. You have to do क्या कहते हैं PCB design, you have to do body design, you have to do some UI UX design. All these different aspects of a product development you should go through and demonstrate in your final presentation. Does that make sense?
Okay, we're talking about creating some working prototypes. There's one more aspect that I think can be useful for them, but I can perhaps show it over here as well. But you have a question first, like?
उसको भी फिर ऐड कर देना. So there is no tool that you're talking about over here. When we talk about PCB design in this session, in this workshop, कल ही मेरी हर्ष से बात हो रही थी. He's designing the PCB for a drone. Okay. And drone के अंदर there has to be some, आपको navigation पे you need some sense of direction. उसका एक magnetometer है जो north उसको चाहिए. Now the way the PCB has been designed, EMC की वजह से जो आपका करंट फ्लो कर रहा है तो उसकी वजह से नॉइज आ रही है, इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक कपलिंग हो रही है, और कहीं भी करंट फ्लो करेगा एक मैग्नेटिक फील्ड जनरेट करेगा, उसकी वजह से उसका मैग्नेटोमीटर ही ठीक काम नहीं कर रहा. वो एक जब पीसीबी चलना शुरू होता है, जब चलना शुरू होता है नॉर्थ यहाँ दिखाता है, थोड़ी देर में नॉर्थ यहाँ दिखाता है, थोड़ी देर में नॉर्थ कहीं और दिखाता है, depending on which part of their PCB is operational and working at that time. So this is a very key part when you're designing a PCB. It is not just about हाँ मेरे सारे connections ठीक हो गए, नहीं, क्या ये फाइनली काम करेगा? फॉर एग्जाम्पल मेरे को अगर अपने यहाँ मैंने इसका पीसीबी बनाना है, एक एस्पेक्ट है कि इस पतली सी शेप में बनाना है ताकि वो ईयरफोन के साथ इसके अंदर आ जाए। दूसरा एस्पेक्ट है कि उसका एक माइक्रोफोन कहाँ लगाओगे भाई, उसका स्पीकर कहाँ लगाओगे? स्पीकर कान की तरफ आएगा, माइक्रोफोन माउथ की तरफ आएगा। अब मैं जो बोल रहा हूं, पता लगा साथ में तुम बैठे हो, तुम बोल रहे हो, वो भी उसको एम्पलीफाई कर दे रहा है। मैं भीड़ वाली बस में जा रहा हूँ, वो पार्ट भी एम्पलीफाई हो जा रहा है। तो जिसको जो फोन के दूसरी तरफ है उसको मेरी आवाज ही नहीं सुनाई दे रही, तो आपका एक माइक्रोफोन से काम नहीं चलेगा। यू नीड कैंसलेशन माइक्रोफोन्स। तो कैंसलेशन माइक्रोफोन्स कहाँ लगेंगे, पीसीबी में कहाँ कनेक्ट होंगे? All those things are a part of PCB design or the electronics part design. It is not just wires बना देना, वो तो आपने कर लिया CTD कोर्स में बहुत पहले। ना 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 ना, this is प्रोडक्ट में, प्रोडक्ट की फंक्शनैलिटी, प्रोडक्ट के ऑब्जेक्टिव को मीट करने के लिए आपको कौन से कंपोनेंट्स यूज करने चाहिए, कहाँ प्लेस करने चाहिए, कौन से कंपोनेंट्स को एक दूसरे से प्रोटेक्ट करना चाहिए, कौन से के ऊपर आपको हीट सिंक लगानी है तो वहां पे उसके पास आपको होल्स बनाने हैं ताकि हीट सिंक को आप स्क्रू इन कर सको। रेजिस्टेंस कहाँ प्लेस करोगे, टॉप साइड पे, बॉटम साइड पे, आरएलसी क्या बनेगा, कहीं रेजोनेंस तो नहीं हो रही। ऑल दोज एस्पेक्ट्स, this is not just connectivity. Are you able to see this? That is what PCB design is about. So इसीलिए कह रहा हूं कि ये नहीं होगा कि आपने कुछ इतना छोटा सा पार्ट ले लिया कि ये जो सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं जो कि रियल कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं वो मिस ही हो गए। आपको कम लेना है लेकिन कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इतनी तो रखनी है कि आप इनमें से किसी चीज को हैंडल करो। Are you able to see this?
So, actually, a very important point is here because you are actually working for a product development, right, which combines everything together. And that is why मतलब जैसे आप लोगों ने questions पूछने लगे, तो I thought that anyway I had this in mind, I would perhaps go ahead with that. I was in a dilemma. Now it's clear. Like, so I will not discuss much about sketching in some things, but what I will talk about is the prototype part. Now, you will be working for finally like creating a product which may be a market ready, or at least you want it to a certain level of readiness, right? That it goes, or it should be demonstrable at least. But before you jump directly into development and other things, you will really have to think what may be the features and functionalities of the product. Especially जब आप बात करते हो कि I want to work with the users and then for the products, right? Like go back to your product and design it according to the user. So iterative cycle है, test करना है. It cannot be that you devoted 1 month in creating a working prototype and then you tested it out, and by the time the course is over. ये practical constraint है, and companies face these constraints day in and day out when they face releases and other things, right? So your prototypes can really be of different types. Now, most of you will perhaps be working on implementation. Fine. Role part is something that you will have to figure out. What role will your product play in people's lives? Look and feel pay, I don't think so we will be willing much, but to a certain extent, yes. Yeah. So look and feel pay, he can talk about much in case he's able to join us. Fine. So prototype has these different dimensions and you have to keep them in mind. Fine. What it means. Your product may be something that combines everything together. When you have the right look and feel, when you have a complete understanding of how it can be implemented, and what will this product do in people's lives, what need will it solve, right? When all these things come together, you have an integration. That is where you're saying it is a market-ready product or a TRL level 9, whatever it is, right? That comes in. रोल प्रोटोटाइप में भी समथिंग दैट आपने स्केच बना दिया कि अच्छा एक्सीडेंट्स के लिए मान लो अगर हम एक ऐप बना देते हैं तो क्या रोल प्ले कर रहा है, इट इज हेल्पिंग इन सेविंग लाइव्स बाय प्रोवाइडिंग इंफॉर्मेशन, राइट? बट देन also how will it look like, how will that application interface be like? I'm just taking a use case. These images are way old. In fact, if you see, this is 92 and actually taken from a paper, what do prototypes prototype, right? But nonetheless, तो आपके application का interface कैसा रहेगा, क्या होना है, and then how will you sort of implement that prototype, ML models and all this stuff. So अभी तक मैंने जो observe किया है, most of you directly come to the implementation part, which is fine because that is what your whole degree is about, implementation part. But to a certain extent, we may need to also look into all these aspects or these different dimensions of it. But simply, even if you don't look at the dimensions, you can understand it in this way, that you have two types of prototype. One is a design prototype or design thinking prototype, and one is an engineering prototype. The difference being, the design thinking prototypes are often low fidelity, just to convey an idea and to quickly get feedback. Why we do that is so that we can fail early on in our process, because failure is important. जब तक हम fail नहीं होंगे ना, we will never learn. So unless and until we understand what our product is going to do and how it is going to look like, so we work with all these छोटे मोटे equipments के साथ, cardboards, papers, low fidelity one. But when you come to the engineering aspects, then you have strict specifications. It's a PCB design if you're talking about. So you have to be very clear with all the specs, components, and everything. Where they will be placed, what are the dimensions of it, what are the breathing spaces you're giving, or margins that you're keeping, how many layers of PCB are you looking at? All those different things they come in, right? So oftentimes these are some prototypes that we talk about when we are talking about engineering prototypes. So you guys decide, आप जब भी आप product बनाते हो या जो भी conceptualize करते हो, it's better to also create low fidelity prototype ताकि आप उन users को find करके उनको दिखा सके. And it's not necessarily कि ये low fidelity prototype does not involve any electronics or interactive components. You can mix and match. आप Arduino में एक छोटा सा part बना सकते हो that is demonstrating one functionality, and perhaps with a cardboard you are able to create an overall form of the product. Fine. So इससे क्या होता है ना, when you go to the users, it helps the users to understand and visualize what it is that you're trying to do. अगर आप जाके बोल दोगे ना कि मैं ये चाहता हूँ कि ऐसे ऐसे हो जाए, वो बोलेगा हाँ बहुत बढ़िया होना चाहिए, you may not get a very good feedback, right? So ये चीज आप ध्यान में रखना कि what type of prototype are you aiming for. You can create different scenarios for it. You can create a lot of functions, or you can create a working one altogether. Right? Well, just keep this brief, and they can be really of different fidelities. Like let's say you 3D print it and then work with something else. So you have near about a high fidelity prototype. Papers के साथ काम करो एक low fidelity prototype. And this is, by the way, a prototype of your vacuum cleaner. The way these companies first. In fact, अगर आप automobile designer से बात करोगे, they create 1-to-1 mock-ups of cars first by clay and sometimes even cardboards and other things. And when they are satisfied with all the fine details, then they go ahead. One of my colleagues used to work in LG, and they were working on a refrigerator. काफी टाइम तक उन लोगों के प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट पता है क्या था? They identified कि फ्रिजेस जो होते हैं आपके घरों में, अब now fridge is a universal device, हर घर में रहते हैं. And also the maintenance is an important part because they are also your user base. The inside of the fridge is something that is being used. So in South India, if you go, they have these big vessels where they keep the batters. But in North India, you need not have those big things, right? So पहले तो इसके height adjustments किस level पे करने हैं grills के. They pondered on it for a very long time. Then they also pondered on how best we can make this product in a way that it becomes easy for the maintenance people to maintain. कि आपने इलेक्ट्रिशियन को बुलाया तो दे शुड बी सिंपली जल्दी से खोला, रिपेयर किया और चलेगा। उनके लिए भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं होनी चाहिए। So you identify the users. There are again two primary users in that case. Maintenance guys, day in and day out, he's working with the refrigerator. And to create all these scenarios, they did cardboarding prototype, fridge ka, and they would keep vessels and understand कि हाँ, ठीक कैसे होगा. These are certain things that we as designers do to understand the users, to understand the requirement. Many of these are cultural, many of these are universal. You have to decide how best you can make it. That is it.
So I will just take attention of people to one term that he used. I'm not sure if you guys noticed. He said that if you just talk to people about an idea and do not take a low fidelity or any prototype to them, you will not get good feedback. They will only say, हाँ हाँ अच्छा है मुझे चाहिए. So बहुत सारे लोगों के माइंड में ये रहा होगा कि नहीं, हाँ हाँ अच्छा है मुझे चाहिए is तो good feedback ना, कि हाँ मैं प्रोडक्ट को बनाऊं. What he meant by good feedback was, or what we always mean when we say feedback, is that we get specific pointers and to this is right, this is what you should do more, this is what you should do less, and so on. Not just all is good or all is bad. All is good appears to be good feedback because it satisfies our ego, but it is actually the worst or the most useless feedback, because अब आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते उसके ऊपर. किसी ने कहा नहीं नहीं बेकार है, तो एटलीस्ट नाउ यू स्टार्ट टू थिंक अबाउट इट कि यार बेकार क्यों कहा होगा उसने. आप 4 और लोगों से पूछोगे, किसी ने कहा गुड है, तो अब आप कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते. एवरीथिंग इज गुड इज द वर्स्ट फीडबैक एक्चुअली in terms of feedback, because it doesn't take you anywhere. Why were you seeking feedback? You wanted to know what to improve upon. आपका पर्पस डिफीट हो गया, आपकी ईगो सेटिस्फाई हो गई, बट पर्पस डिफीट हो गया. So be extremely careful. Good feedback does not mean all is good. Good feedback means the person has spent time to review your work, review your idea, and then is able to give you improvements, deficiencies, appreciate the strengths, and tell you that, oh, this is the most important thing, and this is the thing that I really love in your product. So you do not do away with that in terms of in an attempt to include other things and so on. So if someone is descriptive, that is good feedback. All is good, worst feedback.
Okay. They become all an important part of your answer. So keep in mind, जो भी आप बना रहे हो, go back to the users again and again, get it tested, but do not let the user take control of it.
This is very good. Do not let the user become the designer. You are the designer. So feedback say एक और सुविधा है. The graduating batch have sent asking about feedback. So exactly of that. Please send them of that. Less than 10% of your class that has feedback. And as I just mentioned, it is not good feedback. I need feedback so that we as a department can, we as an institute can. So it is important that each one of you participate in this. Those are not happening, you will get the opportunity. This is once in a lifetime opportunity. We don't give you this opportunity again and again. Please utilize it and make the use of it. So thank you. Then we will meet tomorrow morning, same time, 9:30 a.m. And tomorrow's session is on processor, how to choose the right microprocessor or microcontroller for your product. क्या complexity है. So now it is all the more important कि आज के discussion के बाद you go back, sit with your team members and decide what is it that you really want to work on, what is the kind of complexity that you want to handle, ताकि कल के session को आप proactively utilize कर सकें. ठीक है? चलो, thank you, all the best.